sailor, what shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning?
This is a Luma number 8 winch that's on this Olympic Dolphin 23. And there's a little clip. If you want to take these apart, there's a little clip that has to come off. Put that in my pocket so I don't lose it. And right now it's about 32 degrees Fahrenheit out here, or 0 degrees Celsius for my metric friends. Once you take that clip off, you can pop off the outer drum. And as you can see, it's all old dirty grease. You want to make sure you don't lose these little pawls that are in here. There's some up near the top as well. And I can go ahead and take this all apart, but I'm going to do that inside. Taking the outer drum off exposes the mounting screws so that I can remove the whole thing from the boat. I'm going to take you on a quick tour of what I've been up to this past week. We've had some unusually mild weather here in Maine. The weather has warmed up a bit. Today it's around 55 degrees outside. There's not much wind and the sun's out, so that makes it very pleasant. And we've had a couple other days like that. So I started in on salvaging hardware from my donor boat. I'm going to need all this stuff as I complete the build on my 18-foot sailboat, which will very soon be uncovered, and I'll be lifting it off the strongback and turning it right side up. So I'll start outfitting it with hardware, and the hardware I take off the donor boat, a lot of it I have to clean up and I have to lubricate it and refurbish it. So there's no time like the present. I did run into a problem. I wanted to save the hull as best I could because it's still usable. It could be used as a power boat. If somebody wanted it, I'm happy to give the hull away. But I had some very stubborn fasteners that I couldn't get undone by myself without having any help. And the nuts were in tight places where I'm just a big guy and I couldn't fit. It's a very small boat and the spaces were so tight I couldn't reach up under there, and I had nobody to work a fastener on the other side. I got some of them off. On the port side winch, I bored a hole in the inside of the hull, inside the cockpit, just below the winch, so I could reach up under there and get some of the fasteners. But a couple of them were seized and I couldn't get them out, so I finally just had to cut the winch, just cut the fiberglass around the winch and lift it right out, where now I'll be able to undo it. It pains me that I had to do that. I didn't want to, but it is a donor boat. I did buy it for the purpose of harvesting the hardware from it for my new sailboat, and my new sailboat has priority. And I need the stuff, so there it is. So yes, I have sinned, but then again, it's not a wooden boat. It is a plastic boat after all. If somebody wanted it, they could still repair it easy enough. A little bit of epoxy and some fiberglass and they'll be good to go. It's just a little bit of elbow grease. That's where I'm at this week. This nut wasn't even tight, but the screw kept spinning on me and I couldn't get it out. I got the rest of them out, but that's what it took. There's no way to get to this. I'd have to get into this locker and reach up underneath there. No way I would have got it. I'm too big a guy. Now this slide track here, this is going to come in handy on the new sailboat. So here's the present problem. there's always one or maybe two screws that are kind of stubborn and give you a problem. Now I have this access hole here, trying to get under there, but the problem is the last two screws, the nuts are seized on the threads, and these here are just straight slot screws. It's hard to get a good bite. I can hold the nut on the underside, but if I try turning this as much as I can, it just won't budge, and it'll just going to strip out the screw head. So the problem, there's one screw here, one screw here. The back one I got out these two. So if I'm going to get this winch off, a couple of options. I can try to hold the nut on the underside and try drilling it out on both of these, but that's going to be very difficult. The easiest way, being a donor boat, is just to cut out the fiberglass, and then I can get to it easily. I really hate to do that, but I need the winch more than I need this fiberglass hull. So I have to give it some thought, and I'm just going to move on and stay taking off other fittings for now, and figure out what I have to do here. This is the winch that was on the port side of the donor boat, and well, I couldn't get it out, and had a couple. These are the last two that were being stubborn, and I couldn't budge them. The nuts were seized on the threads. So as you can see, I just cut it out, cut the fiberglass right out, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to leave the hull intact, but this, along with other components where I had the same problem, I just didn't want to waste time, so I just got out the saws and started hacking away. Really pained me to do it, but at least now I'll be able to get this off. And then I'll get the winch cleaned up, and I'll get it all lubricated, and I'll have it all ready to go to install in my new 18-foot sailboat. Well, today's a pretty nice day. It's about, around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is in Celsius at the moment. Nice day for Maine. We still have a little snow and ice on the ground here and there, but most of it's gone. And so I'm back to work on the donor boat, salvaging hardware. So I'm going to turn this around, and you can see I've stripped off the hardware on the port side, and I've also started taking hardware off the stern. Still have a ways to go, and trying to get to these components here, I just can't get to from the inside. I'm not much of a contortionist, and I'm a big guy, and it's so tight I just can't fit. So I'll be cutting holes on the inside, just like I did. You can see over here. That's what I had to do. It's a shame, didn't want to do it, but I wanted to get to this stuff, and I didn't want to waste a lot of time. And I'm going to have to do the same thing to get the hardware off the starboard side here. And then I'll have more hardware to take off up on the foredeck and other areas of the boat. Last week, a couple of weeks ago, I stripped all the hardware off the mast, and so now I have it ready to strip it with a paint stripper and get it down to bare aluminum, and I can go ahead and sand it smooth with very, very fine sandpaper and do a close inspection. And then I'm going to coat it with a self-etching primer, and then I will paint the mast. I did the same thing over here with the boom. I stripped all the hardware off the boom, and so it's ready for the same treatment. So it's time to break out the tools and get back to work getting the rest of this hardware off the donor boat. I need a bow pulpit, but you can see this one here. The previous owner, well, the previous owner didn't do this. The owner that owned it before him for some reason bent the front part of the bow pulpit down, and that's not cool. So in order to repair it, you really can't bend it back. What I have to do is just cut it off and maybe put some little studs inside and weld it back up in the proper position, or I just might have to make a new one or find a used one somewhere. And he gave me another bow pulpit that's okay. It's in the pile over here. And this one though is a little bit different. I might be able to use it, but I'm going to have to modify it. Because it's, let's see what we got here. This is the one. So this is another bow pulpit that the owner of this boat, when I bought it, gave to me. He had that spare one, and I'm not sure I'll be able to use this without some extensive modification, but I'll just have to give it some thought. So it's either use this spare one he gave me, or the one that's on it and having to do some repairs. Well, I guess you could say I've got a few holes here. As the starboard side was even more stubborn than the port side, and I've started in on the stern here. Got more to go, but basically the aft end of the boat, I've got all the hardware, and pretty soon I'll be starting further forward, although there's not as much to take off up there. And of course, along the sides there's a couple of fair leads. There's a fair lead there, there's a couple on the other side, and plus the chain plates. And there's that air vent and the tabernacle for the mast, and there's a small solar panel. I don't even know if it works. I'll have to check it out. Well, so far this is all the hardware that I've scored from the donor boat, and this is the port side winch, starboard side winch, and these, you know, these blocks and cam clinks. I couldn't get them off at all when I cut some access holes, so I just cut the whole thing out, and now I can get to it and I'll be able to get it off. Same thing with a fair lead and a vent right here, and a few other things. So this is the starboard side. All of this stuff I got to go through and inventory it. I'm going to clean it all up and do an inspection on everything, rebuild or lubricate, refurbish, whatever I have to do, and put it all into a listed inventory so I know what I have. And when I go to start assembling, finishing off my new sailboat and fitting it out, I'll know exactly what I have, and I can plan ahead where I'm going to put it. Of course, I have these slides. I have another one too, I just don't have it on the table. This one was on the port side. I got one like it. It was on the starboard side. So, pretty good. I still have a few things more I have to get out of it though. I haven't gone up forward towards the bow or further forward on the side, so I still have more hardware to harvest. The hawse pipe and the bow pulpit and fair leads and cleats and all kinds of stuff up forward that I want to be able to get. But it's looking good. And I mentioned earlier I have the mast all stripped as well as the boom, so I'll be ready to strip off the coating and, you know, clean it up and inspect it and reprime it and paint it. So that'll be ready to go as well. So things are moving forward.
What